I was just going through my office the other day and I found these wonderful 3.5-inch disc floppies. I know most of you that are watching this probably have never held one of these. You probably know what they are, but have never seen it. And I just got to thinking to myself, how far have we gone with technology? Because I have a Macintosh, one of the old Macintosh, black and white screens that we used to use in school in my office just for nostalgia. But I start thinking, how much have computers progressed through the years? Technology, even with that. But how often has your organization and the values and principles of how they're treating their people, how have those evolved over the years? I bet they haven't. Hi there, my name is Lance Dacy, otherwise known as Big Agile. I am here today to help you learn different techniques to practice next-gen agility for our business organizations. And we find oftentimes a lot of the business processes are a holdover from the late 80s and early 90s. I know that was a long time ago, still feels like yesterday to me, but most of their policies sometimes are not changing at the rate that our technology is. So I'd like to talk about that today and how the Agile coach or Scrum Master, whichever process you're following, can act as an enterprise change agent. In fact, our job demands that. So I'd like to focus a little bit more on finance and human resources, whatever that department, the people department, whatever your organization calls it. They have a very big influence over my organization. Do y'all agree? It's like a lot of the decisions we make about people and money come from those departments, and rightfully so. That is the engine of a business, is how to account for the people and grow the people and have an onboarding process and how to hire and recruit people. Very important. Equally important is finance and accounting in the way that we attract all the transactions that our company is spending to make sure we have cash flow to pay those people. So it's not uncommon for those parts of our organization to have a heavy influence on how our technology teams produce product. But at the end of the day, I think that they are reluctant to change, just like our teams are. But the change is often more costly. So if you're going to make an accounting change, you kind of have to roll books back for 5 years sometimes in the case of that. So that's obviously not probably a valuable change. But I'd like to focus a little bit on our people departments or human resources, and a lot of times how what they are tracking in the way of an individual performance can harm team level agility performance that we're actually trying to strive for in an Agile or Scrum framework. Agile, I think, pretty much dies when the system pays for behavior that is opposite what we want to try to have in agility. And it's so fragile anyway. You just blow on it and it seems to be going away. So I'd like to translate, the Agile principles that we have as an enterprise coach to HR, accounting, finance, because they have issues as well in the way that we fund and budget projects or teams for that matter. So when we talk about incentives for individual performance, when you get metrics that you're going to be graded on these things, you're likely going to pay a lot of attention to that. And a lot of those things need to be in line with the Agile values and principles. And so I want to try to translate in this talk today how we can move outside of our technology or product development teams and influence human resources and accounting and finance and things like that. So the first one I want to talk about is HR or the people department and how they do performance reviews. We just recently wrote a blog post about how we want to go beyond just our product development teams as enterprise Agile coaches. And I often get the question, well, what's the best way to do performance reviews? Well, I could give you the answer that just don't do them anymore, because a lot of studies are showing us that those are actually archaic in the way that we grade that. Or if you're doing a yearly performance review, that is probably part of the problem. So at least shorten the time frame by which we do a performance review, but also don't anchor it in such individual performance metrics. When we're practicing Agile, we typically are forming cross-functional teams, which means we might actually be slower as an individual working, but we're delivering sooner to the customer, which is what we're optimizing for. So many organizations sub-optimize just for the people, and they lose sight of the customer. And leaderships are, they're blind to that as well. So what we want to do is practice what's known as a balanced scorecard if you must do performance reviews. And in this way, we can start accounting for the behaviors that we want to see as a team and start celebrating those or accounting for those in the performance review. So I remember a time where I sat down with the HR and just tried to get a title change from project manager to Scrum Master so we could attract better talent, because Scrum Masters look at that job posting and go, project manager, they haven't figured it out yet. But it was a battle that I just don't think we need to fight. It took me 2 years to do it. But this one is one that I would like to work with HR and partner with them on. So I'd like to show you an example of a balanced scorecard that we've actually put on one of our blog posts. And it's a very simple one here. You'll likely find various tools in the industry can spice this up a little bit. But what I want to focus on are the categories, the metrics, the target, and things like that. So if you've never heard of a balanced scorecard, you can obviously go research it and find some great examples out there. But as it's related to an Agile team, I thought this one, and I kind of had to change it a little bit from an organization that I was working with to just try to, make sure we didn't put all of their information out there. But notice how we have categories for individual growth, team level goals, business and finance goals, and customer and stakeholder outcomes. You can often draw this as what's known as an Eisenhower quadrant, and you can just put different categories for that balanced scorecard for people to be known that when they get assessed as a performance review, these are going to be the things that we look at. And individual growth is great. What skills are you looking to develop? Are you going out there and getting certifications, which are often a good thing just to prove that you're continually learning? And you might also look at peer feedback scores. So doing like a 360-degree review within your team and stakeholder group, that's often a really good way to solidify that. And then you have team level goals. You might, instead of saying individual velocity, you might say sprint predictability. How often is the work that we pull into our sprint, what is actually delivered? And, our goal is to be predictable as much as possible, but the nature of the work just doesn't allow for that. So I wouldn't make this 100%, but make it some metric that is palatable for an Agile team. And that helps us focus as a team to use our cross-functional skills to deliver something to the end user. And then you might have cross-functional collaboration and knowledge sharing, like a market of skills. Am I helping to teach other team members my skills so that we have less of a dependency and a bottleneck? Those are healthy things. You'll see a lot more in team goals in a real Agile team, but I just wanted to give you some examples of that. Now, budget and finance goals, there's oftentimes a lot of things that our individual team members really can't do to affect that, or can they? So there are some ways that we can put in there to make them cognizant of these new technology devices they buy or any tools that they use to produce their product. Try to make them and incentivize that with the budget adherence for that, and let them own a little bit of that. We want Agile teams to be self-managing, self-organizing. So try to help them have an environment where they can choose their tools as much as possible. And then, of course, we have stakeholder outcomes. We can survey with our stakeholders and say, how is our team doing for whatever that might look like, or even use some of the end users. And defects are a big part of that as well. So I just wanted to show you, this could be an example for a team member and the different categories that we're tracking, and are they red, yellow, or green related to that. And so the balanced scorecard to me is a really important part of partnering with our human resources or personnel or people parts of our organization to help influence how they do performance reviews to fit better into an Agile world. The last one that tends to have a good grasp on how we operate is finance. And a lot of times finance does not like variability, right? So they're trying to forecast cash flow and stabilize the business, rightfully so. Agile's not a good fit for finance people typically, but they tend to have a big thing to say about how we fund projects for a year. Hey, for the whole year, I need to know what projects you're delivering and the ROI of those. I'm like, oh man, that's a really hard thing to do just for the next week, let alone for the whole year. So we try to encourage them with finance to learn more about our Agile values and principles and respect the nature of our work. And instead of funding individual projects, what we want to teach them is how to fund development teams. And so a lot of times I'll say, okay, finance, let's get together and show you how we've organized and optimized our teams through organizational design. So we have product groups like e-commerce, point of sale product group. We have warehouse, distribution product group, and finance and accounting. And let's say like in a Scrum team, each one of these product groups would have their own product backlog. And what we could then say is, okay, for e-com, how much budget are we going to give to development? And that encompasses just about everything that we would need. And we could say, well, let's ask the question of how many teams we need. Maybe ecom has enough work where we need to form 3 teams around that. Scrum team has 8 to 10 people on it. You can add up all the salaries of that and say, well, ecom needs this budget for the year. And then you'll fund the teams and budget projects based on the product owners working with the stakeholders. Finance and accounting can be a part of that stakeholder group and find techniques to do CapEx and OpEx strategies and things like that. But listen to your finance people. At the end of the day, what do they need? Try to build that into the process. So a lot of times just funding our teams over projects and giving them a way to track value delivery across all of these different product groups answers their question better than them just dictating to us how we have to do it. So the Scrum Master or Agile coach needs to act as an enterprise change agent. You're not just laboring within your team. You definitely want to get them fully functional and productive, but you want to work on the organization, not in it. HR, finance, leaders are often where we'll spend a good deal of our time, let alone the stakeholders with that. So I encourage you to look through some of our blogs, subscribe to them via the RSS feed, join our newsletter with email. There's often things, we call it the Big Agile Bonus, that I'll only share things with our email distribution list because we really value your time and want to make sure that we respect the idea of your email inbox. And so we'll give you precious material that's not necessarily available online. Or you can join us in one of our classes. We've got the links here below for you to join an upcoming certified Scrum product owner, Scrum Master, working on a Scrum team, accurate Agile planning. We run many different classes from many different perspectives. We'd love to see you there. And we can dive into some of these contacts and some of these concepts to help you achieve organizational agility. See you next time.